Drama unfolds for the NWA as Nick Aldis has put in his notice to leave the National Wrestling Alliance. And it all apparently stems with some sort of personal beef with Billy Corgan. Aldis took to his Instagram account this week, which has now been taken down, but he had posted a video by all accounts, basically saying that the NWA has gotten too embarrassing and that it's time for him to leave. This sparked a lot of reaction and questions on the internet, as it always does. Then Nick Aldis continued to give his opinions on Twitter as he posted several things this week, including if some of you are wondering whether stuff like this factored into my decision to give my notice, you would be correct. This is in regards to the Empower All Women's gimmick pay-per-view that they had. Apparently, Mickie James felt insulted that Billy had no interest in doing another one, to which, Billy had said, hey, I lost money on that fucking thing, and now we're not going to be able to even do it as good as we did it last time because there's not enough great women's talent out there. So understandable there. But it continues. Nick Aldis posts, also, fans in NOLA, sorry to disappoint, but I was removed from the show this weekend after giving my notice. I fully intended to fulfill my obligations to the audience, but unfortunately, the company doesn't seem to share the same values. Nick Aldis continues. He's responding to people online now that are commenting on this. And Nick continues, wait till he goes on Busted Open Radio later this morning. I gave 5 years to the brand. I hope the other talent are paying attention, because if he will do this to me, he will do it to anyone. All because I'm leaving and didn't like gags, the gimp, and social distancing matches. Mickie James then posts that she stands by her man, obviously noting what side she's on. But Billy Corgan has responded to this on said Busted Open podcast, and it was not pretty. Dude did not hold back and effectively buried Nick Aldis. We're going to listen to this, and then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of it. Take a look at this clip.
And obviously Nick Aldis was your NWA champion. What happened here? Because I felt like this was a relationship that worked, that was successful. What went wrong and why?
A couple days ago, he does a video where he says, okay, I'm opting out of my contract or whatever. He says it publicly. I wouldn't do business that way, but it's his choice. I didn't like it, but okay, it's fine. He's leaving in 55 days or something, right? Just do your business and go on out the door. That's fine. And hopefully we'll do business down the road. Then he starts blasting the product. Now, I want to remind everybody that everything that he said, I've been hearing that stuff for years. It's not like I heard it and I got all sensitive. Oh my God, what is he saying? But ask yourself, why in a pay-per-view week with a talent who's leaving the company, does he decide to start blasting me and the product 55 days before he's out, and he can just go out and do whatever he's going to do? Why does he have to bury the locker room? Why does he have to bury the product? And again, I've heard all this stuff privately for years. These are not new criticisms. He and I have battled about the product for years, and he's helped make the product behind the scenes better with those battles. So this is not a sensitive reactionary thing. But how do I, as the leader of this company, allow a key talent, the most highly visible talent in the company, up until he opens his mouth and tells people he's leaving, blast the company? Okay. By the way, he's still under contract and he's still being paid. So we disinvite him. Hey, we don't want you to show up. We didn't take away his money. He's still being paid. But I can't have a guy like that show up, because what message does this send to the locker room? There's a lot of people in the locker room where they're not happy about this. They have to go do their job. Why is the focus not on Matt Cardona, Tyrus, and Trevor Murdoch, or Camille, Kylan King, and Chelsea? The focus is on Nick Aldis, who, by the way, is not on the show anymore. So you can understand sort of it's not an animosity. It's like, why are we doing this? Why is he working an angle when he's leaving? Why is he using the NWA's good name or my good name to get himself over in a way that's not necessary? If he's everything he thinks he is, go into the free market like any free agent and test your mettle. He's working, okay, and I'm using the industry term here, okay? He's working something. I don't know what he's working, but he's willing to sacrifice me and the NWA to prove something or get something going or get out early to go do something because somebody's given him an Iggy and said, hey, if you can get out early. This is not cool. He's under contract. He's a paid talent.
All right. First of all, can we just ask, is it a work? It's a work, right? This is a work. They're working together because they were already doing, forgive me, I don't follow NWA religiously, but as far as I'm aware, they were already doing like a Billy versus Nick Aldis type angle, right? They were already doing a thing where Nick was outspoken about Billy and didn't like Billy. Are they just working the marks? Are they working me? Are they working you? Are they working us? Is that what this is? You know, they're both giving it a lot of attention and it is kind of coming out of nowhere. And, you know, it's wrestling, right? So you can't put it past anybody to be working. And in fact, whether this is a work or it's not a work, this is how you do a work in 2022 with a smart internet. It's not impossible. You just gotta take it to the social media. You gotta take it to interviews. You gotta take it publicly. You gotta speak out publicly about your real life dissatisfactions, you know, acknowledge, hey, we're doing a storyline and all, and I get that, and that was going fine and we were getting along, but then this motherfucker did this. And that's exactly what Billy said basically on Busted Open. He was like, hey, you know, we were working a storyline, but we got along fine, everything was fine, and now all of a sudden, and he accuses Nick Aldis of running his own angle. You know, he accuses him of possibly looking to, you know, get himself over through this to position himself to get a spot with another company, WWE or AEW, and that perhaps he's just running an angle to get himself over, to build up some hype in himself, free agent and all of that shit. Perhaps. I see a lot of people are torn on this. There's people that are Billy fans, and then there's people that are Nick Aldis fans. I gotta tell you, like, you know, I'm not a huge Nick Aldis guy, if we're gonna be completely frank here, but biases is aside. Unless they're running an angle, they're both kind of looking like a little bit of asshats to a certain extent, just talking about this publicly. For Nick Aldis's end, okay, Billy feels to a certain extent that Aldis didn't quit under proper circumstances. I mean, he just kind of gave his notice, but he felt like maybe felt a little hurt because they had a friendship going and they had a good business relationship. And Billy had said that Nick was the highest paid guy on his roster, and that Nick was privy to the inside of the business, inside of Billy's life, so to speak. You know, Nick was one of those guys that Billy let in his inner circle. And supposedly there is some falling out over this Empower pay-per-view gimmick. Now, I don't blame Nick for sticking by Mickey. If Mickey felt hurt or offended in any way, shape, or form by this bullshit. But I don't see how she could be. Billy Corgan is not under any obligation to spend any money. It's his show. It's his pay-per-view. He threw Mickey a bone to do the Empower pay-per-view last time. He built it around Mickey. Mickey was like the top dog running the show. You know, she had a heavy influence in the booking of it and just putting it all together. Her name was on it, her stamp of approval, so to speak. And you know what? It didn't work out. You know, Billy said it was a success, but then he also in the same breath said it lost money. which is the exact opposite of a success. You know, people might have liked it and all, but nobody paid money to see it. So, and Billy's right. Now the pool of talent is thinned out a lot more than it was before. You know, between WWE with Triple H taking back over and scooping up a lot of those talents that were already released. You know, he's got a Dakota Kai back, and you know, Tegan Knox is supposedly on her way back, and you know, that sort of Mia Yim's there now again. So it's a lot of female free agents. Emma's scooped back up. You know what I'm saying? Fucking, and then on AEW's got a lot of more of the female free agents as well. So when Billy says there's not enough like TV ready talent in the female out there on the market for females, and Fightful had chimed in and they kind of got all this shit started. You know, that was a tweet that Nick Aldis was responding to when he was saying it was stuff like this. Part of it, yes, it was a tweet by Fightful basically saying, hey, Billy, there is lots of great talent out there. Yeah, look, I'm sure there is. All right. There's not even enough. Even the female talent on TV isn't fucking up to snuff, right? Look, the women's segments get some of the lowest ratings on these TV shows. More so in AEW than WWE, but it's not women's. It's not. You got to get out of your head about this. This need to have equality. Like, oh, men and women need to have equal time, equal pay-per-view. You know, women need a pay-per-view too. Like this shit loses money, bro. People aren't paying for these things. You can't just now. It is a chicken or the egg situation, right? Like, is it because there's not enough time being put into the women's division, not enough TV time, not enough of a push? That's why it's not getting over. Or is it not getting over because it's women's wrestling and it will inherently not get over? Either way, it's too big of an investment for a small shoestring budget company like NWA. They're not a big billion-dollar company, right? They don't have TV time. They're fledgling. It's coming out of Billy Corgan's pockets, you know. And even though he's a very wealthy, famous musician, he's not just gonna go bankrupt over this fucking wrestling company. You know what I mean? You know, it's what Tony Khan's wrestling company should have been. No offense to AEW. I love that AEW is around for places to work, but it's you know, it's Billy's passion project. You know, it's just on a smaller level. You know what I mean? Where, you know, you're not out there trying to anyway. That I'm digressing here, but you get what I'm saying. This is Billy's passion project, but he's not going to go bankrupt with it. You know what I mean? And he's not spending millions of dollars on it, as far as I'm aware, anyway. In a way, just in another Empower pay-per-view is just not going to draw. There's less talent out there, and sure, I'm sure there's some good female wrestling talent out there, that aren't signed up, but they're not over. Nobody knows them enough to spend money on them. And, you know, I'm sure they could hang in the ring. Ooh, that's cool. But he's also looking for people that are TV ready, and that people are you're doing the pay-per-view so people can buy it. You know, you're not selling out big arenas, so it's not so much the tickets, but you're doing it for the pay-per-view. And if people aren't buying the pay-per-view and you're losing money on a girls show, which, by the way, losing money on an all women's show, look, the women that were used for NWA were not big budget women talent. You know what I mean? You got like a Mickey and such. You know what I mean? There's a couple bigger expenses on there, but for the most part, you know, if you're using fairly unknown or unsigned talent from the indies that are female, it's not going to be that expensive of a show to run. And the fact that it lost money, oof, that's a rough one. You know what I mean? So he's under no obligation to do this show. And if Mickey felt, and Billy addressed that, you know, if you felt personally offended, I'm sorry. This was a business decision. This was nothing against Mickey James. And, you know, Billy was really apologetic about that, but apparently that pissed off Mickey, which in turn pissed off Nick and is causing him to leave. One of the reasons anyway. Also, according to Billy, Nick wasn't happy with his creative in there, and that Nick really wanted it to be the Nick Aldis wrestling promotion, and Billy wanted to push other guys and build up other guys. I would assume Nick probably had a problem with guys like Trevor Murdoch and Tyrus. I don't know that he'd be really stupid if he had a problem with guys like Matt Cardona getting pushed to the top of the card, because Matt's going to draw eyeballs to the NWA. But arguably, and look, Tyrus gets a lot of TV time, but not necessarily by wrestling fans, right? So he's maybe more of a household name than I think people realize, but not for wrestling per se. Those people aren't going to come buy his pay-per-views necessarily. And sure as fuck, not many people are buying pay-per-views for Trevor Murdoch. Come on. I know people love Trevor Murdoch, but goddamn, like, there's no way that you're like, oh my God, fat old slobby country boy. Yes, that's my exact favorite thing to watch on TV. Like, I'm sure, take my money. I'm sure you're out there. Salute to you, my sir, or ma'am. You're a diehard among diehards, and I commend you for that. But it's not going to be many of you. So, I can see why Nick thought maybe the focus should be around him more and blah, 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 blah. But doesn't every wrestler on the planet? And there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, Billy's being petty about this and stuff like that." Is he though, or is Nick kind of being a douchebag right now? Does Nick need to be out there like burying the company? Like, he literally did a public video and he took it down, but he literally did a video saying NWA is embarrassing and I don't want to be there anymore. I don't want to associate with it. That's a fucking dickish thing to say before Billy ever said a goddamn word about this. So if all this is real, Billy going back out there now and burying, and he buried Aldis on Busted Open, and Aldis has been burying Billy on Twitter and his Instagram and that kind of shit. But it's getting pretty nasty, and Billy said too, like, look, man. You're not going to hurt me. I'm Billy fucking Corgan. You know what I mean? People have been trying to kill my career for, while you were still eating Cheerios. He didn't say that, but it's the truth, right? So, all this isn't gonna, it's hard to say, man, because a lot of people see how Nick's trying to be out there spinning it now. Like, oh, I hope all these other talents are watching. And fucking Billy's just going to go on Busted Open or wherever and just bury every talent that leaves the company. That's not the case. He's clearly upset with Nick about the way things were handled. And it seems like communication's been shut off completely between two people that were pretty much friends, not just business partners, but friends through their business relationship. And if it's all true, it's sad that this kind of shit happens in wrestling. And both sides have an argument per se, but why wasn't Nick Aldis picked up by WWE or AEW in the past? And Aldis says, oh, I turned AEW down, and perhaps he did. We don't know, right? Tony signs everybody, so that could be the case. But Billy came out and said on Busted Open that Nick has a reputation for being difficult. He's fine when everything's about Nick, but as soon as the booking goes against what Nick likes, Nick gets whiny and complainy and bitchy and difficult. And now he's certainly not shy to go out there and bury the entire company. That's another thing Billy said too. It's like, if our company's so bad and so horrible, you were just with us for years. So what's that say about you? And look, go start your own promotion and run a women's fucking pay-per-view an all women's pay-per-view with talent that's not on WWE or not on AEW, and see how far you get, right? See how that works out for you. Now, look, my final thoughts on this are this. I don't particularly like Nick Aldis. I don't find him all that charismatic or intriguing to watch. I have all the respect in the world for people that can wrestle good, but it's not going to make me spend money on you or even care to watch you. A good wrestler is a dime a dozen. Anybody can be a good wrestler. There's not millions, but there's hundreds of good wrestlers out there, right? It takes more than that to be a star on TV, to sell pay-per-views. In pretending you're Ric Flair dressing up in a suit and, I'm the world's champion. You know what I mean? Doesn't do anything for me, he's a charisma vacuum, personality-less, in my opinion, or at least not what I'm looking for. There's nothing that makes me want to see Nick Aldis. And when I hear him talk, he doesn't impress me all that much either. I'm not talking about promo. I'm talking about this kind of shit. On the other hand, I like that Billy's willing to push back and look, I have a bit of a music background myself, and I'm not going to say like I'm going to always side with the musicians or anything, but I'm with Billy on this one personally, though. I will say, I don't like the NWA. I do think that he's booking it poorly. I don't even know if booking, well, depends. I'm not saying like his storylines or whatever suck, and I don't watch enough to really know the ins and outs of them. I can tell you that Trevor Murdoch and Tyrus are not people that you should build your company around. Clearly he's going for something different, and that's fine. I think you get that title on Matt Cardona and you fucking just run with his ass as far as you possibly can. You know what I mean? But yeah, NWA is very missable at this point. Nobody's paying money to see Trevor Murdoch. But with all of that said, what do you guys think? This has been an interesting development. I'm still on the fence. Part of me thinks it's a work just because this is such a public thing going into a pay-per-view. Maybe Aldis appears at the paper. It could stir up buzz for the company. And it's an outside the box way to blur the lines of kayfabe and kind of stir up some attention for your company. Maybe it's not though, because like Billy said, I have a pay-per-view I'm trying to promote, and I got to come on here and I got to talk about fucking Nick Aldis and all the stupid shit he's saying on Twitter. I'd rather be talking about my pay-per-view, but in that same sentence, he's talked about his pay-per-view twice. So what's going on? Is it a work? Is it real? And if it is real, who do you side with? Do you think Billy is obligated to just spend a bunch of money on a fucking all women show, and he's a misogynist and a douchebag and more interested in Trevor Murdochs and Tyruses of the world than on Nick Aldis, and Nick Aldis is your baby face in this? Or do you think Nick Aldis is kind of a complainer, kind of a douchebag a little bit, and kind of overblowing this whole thing to do exactly what Billy said and just fucking get himself over, create an angle out of nothing to propel him into his free agency? Who knows? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below if you're watching on YouTube, and we'll catch you in the next clip. Hey, thanks for checking out that clip. Don't forget to check out other clips here on the channel. And while you're there, throw a like, throw a subscribe. And don't forget to check out full episodes each and every Sunday of the Pro Wrestling Podcast.